dry January, and whether you are participating for the first time, the third time, or you're working towards long-term sobriety, then there are some things that most people struggle with. You may not struggle with all of these things, but it's good to be prepared just in case. So in this episode, we'll review 4 different challenges that you may face, and I'll help you come up with a plan to deal with each one. A lot of the dry January literature has found that publicly sharing your commitment to not drink is helpful. And in my opinion, this does not mean posting on your personal social media and telling your entire family, everyone you've ever worked with, and everyone that you went to school with that you're doing dry January this year. What it does mean is telling the important people, your partner, your closest friends, and sharing your commitment with your sober support system. And I know, nobody wants to be the person who cried sober when you've told people that you're never drinking again at least like 50 times already. But it doesn't matter. We do that with everything unhealthy, not just with drinking. Plus, everyone in a sober community has done the exact same thing. So there's never any judgment there. Keeping your commitment to yourself because you don't want to fail publicly gives you permission to drink if things get too uncomfortable because nobody knows anyways. Dry January participants will typically use online groups and content during the month. Being part of a sober community is helpful because then you get to see the experience of others, and that both normalizes what you're going through and then also helps you learn skills through other people's experiences. You'll also see that no one is ever glad that they went back to drinking, and that can help you keep your commitment too. A 2025 study published in Addiction Research and Themes interviewed 16 people who participated in dry January in 2022. 4 themes of what people struggled with during the month were found from these interviews: breaking the routine, dealing with socializing while not drinking, avoiding loss of motivation, and dealing with the potential for failure. Now, this was a really small study, but I've worked with hundreds of people getting and staying sober, and I know that these struggles are pretty universal. People had different ways of dealing with these challenges, so I will go through each category so that you can get some ideas. Number 1 is routine. We build routines around our drinking, and then we reinforce them over and over again so that drinking becomes automatically just what we do. Breaking this and finding other things to do is a big part of being successful. This study found that when participants limited the availability of alcohol and had non-alcoholic drinks around, that it really supported them. You could even just have sparkling waters in your fridge. It doesn't have to be NA drinks. I released an episode about a month ago going into the pros and cons of NA drinks so that you can make that decision for yourself if you scroll back in my feed a little bit. Getting alcohol out of the house is also essential. If there's no friction between you and a drink, then you're going to cave at the first sign of discomfort. This can be difficult, though, if you live with other people and they aren't open to removing the alcohol, but maybe you can find a compromise. If you can't, it's still doable. I work with people in this situation, but it is helpful to at least ask. Part of the routine is marking the transition from work you to home you, and alcohol is a fast and easy way to force this transition when you don't know how to do it for real. Part of sobriety is learning how to do this naturally, but in the meantime, having another special drink can help. When I was sober curious, I remember people used to tell me to have sparkling water in a fancy glass, and I kept thinking, you don't understand me. So while that works for some, that's not what I'm suggesting that you do. You have to figure out what works for you here. And another way that dry January participants broke routines was by changing what they did. And this is one of my main pieces of advice for people. Don't do the same stuff sober that you were doing drunk. You associate alcohol with things like sitting on your couch, certain TV shows, people, places, etc. When I first got sober, I didn't go in my living room for a month. All I did every day was drink on the couch and watch TV, so I wasn't going to sit on the couch and watch TV with a water. The second challenge that you will likely face is socializing. Many people who participate in Dry January make emotional preparations for socializing, so that can involve psyching themselves up before going to whatever the social thing is, like telling yourself that you can do it, trying not to worry obsessively or go in a rumination loop. A lot of people struggle socially and then they mute their lack of confidence with alcohol. Some even believe that alcohol enhances their personality. What people will typically see is the more that they do stuff sober, the more they realize alcohol was never required. Alcohol will never improve your self-esteem and confidence long-term. It's just going to keep you stuck exactly where you are right now. In the beginning, you will devote a lot of mental energy to worrying about what other people will think of you not drinking. But like a wise client once said to me, eventually, I realized that no one cared, but I still cared. Then, no one cared, and I didn't care either. And that's the progression. The way that you feel right now will not be the way that you always feel if you allow yourself to go through things. And another strategy that people use is to change the activity. Going to bars or parties and watching other people drink is not going to be a very enjoyable experience for you. Plus, alcohol-focused activities do not lead to meaningful conversations. Sometimes this means you will lose friends, but if someone doesn't want to be your friend because you don't drink, then that means they were never a real friend to begin with. It's difficult when everyone knows you as someone who drinks, and then all of a sudden, you're not drinking anymore. So it's helpful to let people know in advance that you're not drinking so that you don't have to feel put on the spot. Dry January is the easiest way to do this because millions and millions of people participate every year. It's not an alcoholic alert, it's a health challenge. Some people will make excuses about being on antibiotics or having to drive, but I don't recommend doing this because, first of all, why does anyone need to know that you're on antibiotics? And second, if you provide excuses, then people are going to give you solutions, and then you're stuck. The third challenge that you may face is a loss of motivation. Many participants say that being a part of a sober community, whether that's a free sober Facebook group, the Stop Drinking Reddit, AA, or one of the many paid online communities, helped them. And feeling like they were a part of something was keeping them motivated to continue. But an important point from this study is that the motivational role of the group reduced after January as they became less of an active contributor and more of an observer. I found this as well in my own work in two different ways. People either come into the group and observe but never participate, and then the more time that goes by, the more uncomfortable they feel until they disappear. Or people come into the group and use it, and then either drink again or feel like they got this now, and then they slowly disconnect. And eventually, they're so disconnected that they feel awkward and leave. So a group only works if you utilize the group. If you are looking for support, which you should be if you don't have any, then there are so many great options now. If you're in the sober curious stage, then I would suggest a free Facebook group or one of the sober curious online communities. My community is not open for sober curious people that are taking a break. It's only for the sober committed to make it a permanent lifestyle change. I personally started in free Facebook groups, and I mostly just used a group to make myself feel better when I was hungover and ashamed, but that's okay. I'd take the little pep talk comments and then go about my business, but it still helped to not do it alone. Wherever you're at in the journey, there's a group for it with people at a similar stage as you. Sometimes having a day count and a set day goal can make us less motivated. So if an entire month feels daunting for you, then focus on how you're not going to drink today and then repeat that tomorrow. Others find a goal to be very motivating. It just depends on you. I've noticed that some people thrive without day counting, and for others, saying that they won't count days turns into a permission slip to have a bunch of slips throughout the month. My first goal was 7 days. I never actually did dry January ever because 30 days felt completely impossible, so I wasn't even going to try it. And the fourth challenge that you may face is dealing with potential failure. There's a variety of ways that people deal with slips. Some will continue on, others reset, and others will shame spiral and return to drinking. I'm not going to tell you what to do with your days unless you really want me to, but that's a personal decision. I do have an episode on it, though, if you want to know what I think more. Just search for what to do with your days after a slip sober-powered. But some people feel like having mostly sober days is big progress from what they've done before, and they're proud of it. And others are aiming for complete sobriety. I think giving ourselves grace is helpful to a point. If multiple years go by and you're still giving yourself grace for slips, then maybe it's time to try a different approach. That doesn't mean beat yourself up for it, because we can't shame ourselves sober, but it does mean getting some more support to decide if you really want this. So I've seen people take 3 different approaches to a slip. First, they beat themselves up, they don't tell anyone, and then they get sucked back into the back and forth for a while. That one's kind of self-explanatory. I think we've all done that one. 2, they tell their support system, but then they say they don't feel bad for it, onward, it's a data point, stuff like that. And because they don't spend any time trying to understand why it happened, they drink again soon after. We don't want anyone to feel shame, but if you don't feel bad about it at all, then why would you not do it? Plus, this type of stuff is so toxic for sober communities because other people's drinking voice can tell them this is permission for them to drink once too. And third, they tell their support system and they spend time talking and thinking about why it happened. And then they stay close to their support system over the next few weeks to make sure they get back on track. This is the hardest version, obviously, but it gets us a different result. So what can we take away from all of this information? Well, not drinking is it is the hardest thing that anyone will ever do in their lives. It's not just about breaking a habit, it's about changing your entire life. So if you approach it in the way of just white-knuckling for a month, then you're not going to get the best results. When I was sober curious, I was quietly following sober pages and was a member of some Facebook groups. I would constantly post about my moderation journey, and I truly believed that I could be that one person that figures it out because I'm different. What I never realized during this stage was I was in sober groups, not moderation groups. And I was there for a very good reason, because I'm a person that has to be sober. Take it or leave it, drinkers aren't doing dry January unless they're doing it for some other reason, like to support somebody else. They don't listen to sober stuff or join groups. Studies have found that dry January tends to attract people who care more about their health and who drink problematically. So what I've learned in my years of trying to moderate and in my years of sobriety is no one who can achieve their dream relationship with alcohol wonders if they're an alcoholic or not. You never have to take on that label. I don't. But the reason that we worry about it is because deep down we know that it's true and we're fighting to just not accept that truth. If this was helpful for you, please make sure that you are following my podcast. I'm going to have helpful episodes for you the whole rest of the month, and I will talk to you next week.